Direct Service Garage Doors. We are your one-stop shop for all things garage door. From garage door repair and broken spring replacement to new garage doors and openers, we do it all. We're proud to be among the highest-rated local garage door companies in all of Northwest Arkansas. Our highly trained technicians are available 24 hours a day at no extra cost to you. So if you have an emergency, call us today, 479-203-5880, or visit our website at directservicenwa.com. Don't wait days. We'll fix it now.
I was completely I was muted. I was muted there. So my bad. I forgot that I had to mute myself trying to rework StreamYard. Let's try that again. Yo, what's going on, Arkansas Razorback fans? Shout out to Haas, by the way, for hitting me up in the DMs, correcting me or telling me that I was muted. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Okay, do that. Shout out to the show sponsors, Direct Service Overhead, the Garage Door Company, the Apex Tattoo Studio, and the Odd Soul. We have Otis Kirk on. When you switch back and forth between OBS and StreamYard, you forget the settings are different. So, all right, we've got Otis now. I want you guys, I want to give you a heads up. Otis Kirk, we're going to talk about spring camp. This is going to be about his interpretation, what he's seeing, what he's hearing. We heard from Sam Pittman yesterday. So Otis is going to get us caught up on just kind of his thoughts so far through camp. If you have any recruiting questions, that'll be, just follow him on Twitter. Go to Hogville. Otis Kirk, of course, you guys know, writes for Hogville. He'll have you updated there. Again, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And shout out to all the Patreon supporters. All right, let's do this. Let's bring on Otis Kirk. Hang on. Let me get this straightened out. Here we go. There we go. There he is.
Yeah.
Hey, Otis, thanks for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy. I know you got a busy week coming up, but I appreciate you coming on.
Man, I had an Alabama radio show this last night after I talked to you. I did that this morning, and we talked the new basketball recruit, the transfer.
Yeah, that was.
I do that for the papers, so I am involved in basketball, baseball, and football with the papers.
Yeah, you're a busy guy, and I know we talked yesterday at practice, and it's you got a lot going on, and it's a busy time of year too, especially now with with the transfer portal for basketball, and then of course we've got spring football going on. We're talking to the players, talking to the coach. And then, by the way, we've got the portal opening up soon for football, but we're gonna talk just about the spring camp and just kind of your interpretation so far. And again, this is guys. If you have any recruiting questions, anything about that, save that for another time. We're just going to talk about spring football here. All right, so I have some notes here, just kind of jotted down. One of the things, Otis, that kind of stood out to me, if I could pull it up here. Where's my Wednesday notes? Here we go. They played a 122-play scrimmage that took place Saturday, bragged on the defense, specifically mentioned Landon Jackson and the linebackers.
Yeah.
Landon Jackson sounds like he's coming along.
Yeah, he was a big-time player out of high school, Ty, and then he got hurt, and injuries can make anybody an average player, but he's anything but an average player. But, yeah, he's a good player. He bragged on all the defensive ends, too. I mean, they are strong there. It's not just Sam blowing smoke. I mean, you wish they were that strong inside because you've got not just Landon, but you've got Deshaun Stewart, you've got Zach Williams, Trajan Jeffcoat, John Morgan III, and Nico, definitely. I knew I was leaving someone out, Nico. So I mean that's 6 right there, and I may still be leaving someone out, but and you got Quincy Rhodes on the way from North Little Rock. So that they're really strong there. And then linebacker, he mentioned it was good to hear him mention Manny Powell. Of course, he mentioned Crook, he mentioned Poopall, and he mentioned Antonio Greer. We know those 3 kids. He had mentioned Carson Dean in prior times, really mentioned Carson Dean big, but he didn't mention him, but he did mention Manny Powell. And I figure between Manny Powell and Carson Dean, they should be pretty solid at that 4th linebacker spot. We know the top 3. We know the top one's going to be Poopall, and then you got Antonio Greer, you got Jordan Crook. Who knows who will start, but I'm sure those guys will rotate. Could be an injury there as well. But Manny Powell, Carson Dean, and they might still sign a linebacker from the portal. I mean, that's always a possibility. We know.
Yeah.
I think we know what the top 5 priorities out of the portal are, but but that's going to leave 2 or 3 other scholarships. I'll hit that real quick. That's a backup center, 2 interior defensive linemen, and 2 back end secondary guys, safeties, nickel backs. That's the 5 priority. That's what they feel like they have to sign, those 5. And then,
what do you make of really quick of Dean? You just mentioned him. He's someone that I've heard several media people really brag on. I think Sam, maybe it wasn't Sam, someone somewhere within, maybe it was Pittman that talked about Dean kind of standing out.
No, it's Sam. Yeah, he talked about he had a chance to start. He actually threw out the start word with him. And he and Luke, the tight end, have been the 2 freshmen that have really drawn a lot of praise from Sam. And I mean, I was a little surprised Sam said he runs better than he thought, because Carson Dean was on some relay teams down there at Ice.
Yeah.
I mean, his running should not surprise anyone. I don't know if Sam wasn't aware he was a track guy, but I mean, you look at him at 6'4", 235 pounds, you think, he's not, he probably speed may be an issue, but no, man. I mean, speed's not an issue with him. And yes, he's a big, but I mean, I feel really good. I mean, one thing Michael Shearer did when he got here, he sure improved that linebacker room. I mean, that guy deserves a ton of credit, because before that we kept hearing, it's hard to get linebackers. They move them to defensive line in the state, so they don't play there, and one excuse after another.
Yeah.
And all Michael did was roll up his sleeves, go to Texas, go to Georgia, go to wherever to get these kids. And then Travis Williams went and got Antonio Greer. Didn't miss a beat either there, because Greer's a good ball player. I saw him against Florida this season, Ty, and that kid's a stud. I mean, he's a really good player.
I watched him in actually I got some really good footage of him just doing some drills. God, he's explosive.
Yeah, no, he's a good player. I guess I shouldn't say stuff. He's a solid, he's above. He's not what you would think seeing a linebacker from South Florida. He went against Florida when he was in South Florida and dominated that game. So I mean, he's the type of kid that got under recruited. Whatever, I don't know how he ended up at South Florida, but obviously he got under recruited, and he's got a chance if he stays healthy. I'll tell you what, as good as Drew Sanders and Bumper Pool and Poopall were last year, that 3-man rotation may not drop off as much as you would think it would, because you got the all-time leading tackler in Bumper Pool. You got a first or second round draft pick, Drew Sanders. You think, man, there's no way this linebacker, and I'm not saying it'll be as good. I'm just saying there may not be the drop off that common sense would tell you there will be. There may not be.
Well,
but it may not be that much.
They have kind of like what you mentioned. They have, and you and I have talked about this before, they have quality depth there. I kind of feel like for the first time, I mean, we've thrown out the names already: Manny Powell, Jordan Crook. Dean apparently is going to make a fight to be 2 deep or 3 deep, and they've still got people on the way there.
And then you still got the other 2 kids. You got Alex Sanford's on the way, and then you've got the kid from Houston that was injured and missed a little time here in the spring, but and then you've got Caden Henley, who's going to develop into a linebacker in time. when we all knew when they signed Caden that wasn't for instant impact, but he's the type player that's only going to get better. He's going to get stronger, bigger, faster, like most players. But
Shiloh Christian player.
Yeah, he came from a smaller school, and he's going to be fine. But they've really recruited well there.
They have. And like you said, Michael Schur deserves credit for that.
Yeah, he does.
The question will be moving forward, and again, that's a recruiting question we're going to steer away from, but the question will be, can they continue to bring in a higher level of talent than what they used to do, and can they develop that talent on the field? And I think they're in good shape there now. We'll see what happens. Something that Sam mentioned, not being able to tell us about how good the secondary played in the scrimmage that we just mentioned, because quarterbacks didn't have time to throw the ball. Also, later on in that very same interview with the media, he mentioned that they couldn't get the run game going. How much of that do you think is the offensive line? Kind of the Trey Biddy called it musical chairs. How much of it is it that? Do you think maybe there might be a slight drop off from the last 2 years, just in terms of maybe how good they could be, what their ceiling might be, or again, is it just they're just mixing things up?
I think combination probably of all that, Ty. I think there is a drop off. I just like at linebacker. I think there may be more of a drop off in the O line than there is in the linebacker. But I do like their options. I mean, you've got Bo Limmer and Brady Latham. We know they're going to start. Kudus is one of the top 5 of the offensive line. I feel like Braun is. So then you've got, is it going to be Devon Manuel? Is it going to be Andrew Chamley and Marion Harris? There's somebody else. Oh, Tykees Crawford. Who's going to be Tykees Crawford? Let me get my roster so I'll quit saying there's something. I'm missing somebody. But, no, I mean, they've got options there. Those guys can play. So, I mean, I think they're going to be okay on the offensive line. But I think it's a combination of all that. I think part of it is they have played people at different positions and stuff. But, and I think, too, the defense is just ahead. I think those defensive ends got a chance to dominate a lot of teams. I really do. And you're playing at a attacking style. But the offensive line, if you think about it, Ty, against Liberty and some teams last year, even with Stromberg and Luke Jones and Dalton Wagner, they struggled at times. Last year, that offensive line did, even with all that experience.
Yeah.
I think there's some question marks on the offensive line. I really do. I think I'd be lying if I didn't say I think there's some question marks. As far as the drop-off, there's probably some, but there was times they didn't play well with what they had. I think in time, though, these guys can be okay. I thought Amarian, and everybody calls him Amarian, but it's Imarian.
Imarian.
Yeah, it's Imarian. His dad straightened me out on that. His straightened me out on that. I know Elliot when he played at Arkansas. But anyway, now that I've given my English lesson for the day. But no, I think he played well in the bowl game, and that was without any experience. I mean, Ty Keese is a guy they've had as the 6th man for a couple of years, Ty. I mean, he's been right there challenging for a starting spot the last 2 years to some degree anyway. And then, I love Andrew Chamley. I mean, God, you look at him. He and Manuel both. Those are what left tackles in the NFL are supposed to look like. Yeah. You're talking about big, old, tall, long arm, long kids. And now the Harris and Emmanuel have lost that weight. They look a lot better.
You know what's
I wasn't coughing until I got on here.
Oh, you're fine. But hey, listen, it's that time of year. It's
I did a radio show this morning, and like I said, I've been on the phone dealing with some insurance. I bought a new car, and so switching over insurances and stuff and trying to figure out why they raised the price $80 a month. I mean, other than that, well, it's a new car, so I mean, I understand, but I've been dealing with that and then doing a trade. I'm sorry, but anyway, but I think the offensive line in time will be okay, but it may take some time. But it's not unusual this time of the year, and we asked this. I think Sam was asked this last night. Usually, I think Tom Murphy may have asked if isn't it usual for the or regular for the offensive to be behind the defense early in the camp, and I think so. Yeah. And Sam said they blissed. Of course, we were locked out, so we didn't get to see any of it. So we're taking all of this for what Sam says, but I can imagine that's spot on with the blitzing. I don't think they were ready to pick it up. And then you got Braun is new to the team, but Braun's going to be a very good player for him, Ty. I mean,
well, and so you talk about Braun. That was going to be my next segue. Was they've done some things with Braun that weren't really something we thought would happen, which was they've got him playing in a position where there were some issues at Florida, and I talked with my live chat about this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He wanted to play a different spot on the offensive line. Can you talk about that just for a second?
Yeah.
Where they've got him at right now versus where he wants to be?
I was the one he talked to about that offensive line, and I left a lot of the stuff he said about Florida out of my story that day. He told me, so I'm not a tackle. They put me at tackle, and I'm not a tackle. I'm a guard. And he was emphatic. It wasn't like, hey, whatever. And he wasn't talking about Arkansas. He was talking about his experience with the new coach at Florida, and he wasn't happy. And I asked Sam when they put him out at tackle that first day that I saw it at practice, which a couple of weeks ago, week ago, 2 weeks, whatever it was. I asked Sam I talked to Sam at Pro Day the other day, and I told him, I said, this kid hates tackle, but I guess he'll play it if that's what it does. But I think what's going to happen. Here's what they want. They're wanting to find a backup center out of the portal. That way, Otis does not have to be the backup center because they actually believe. I've got a very good source on this. I won't say who, but I've got tells me Otis is one of the 5 best offensive linemen. They want to get him away from center and let him play tackle.
Now, one of the 5 best offensive linemen on the roster with the Razorback? Okay.
On the team. In other words, he would be starter, 5 starter.
Right.
But I think that would be it would be a tackle. So, therefore, if you've got him at tackle, then you would probably have Braun and Latham at the guards and Limmer at center. Then it comes down to you put Chamley or Devon Manuel at left tackle, or is it Ty Keese at tackle, or could Ty Keese play right tackle and Otis play left tackle? But I think if Braun and Otis are starters, like I think, and no one's told me Braun's a starter, but I have been told that Otis is one of the 5 best, they feel. But if Braun and Otis are the starters, we know Latham and Limmer are. Okay, well, then it comes down to Ty Keese, Manuel, and Chamley and Amarian. That's what it comes down to. And, so in all of those kids are capable of playing tackle. I think Amarian and Ty Keese are more comfortable at right tackle. Chamley and Manuel are more comfortable at left tackle. I don't know if Otis, they target him at right tackle or left tackle. That I don't know.
Well, they talked about him. Sam Pittman talked about him, if I heard it right. Now, I listened to it literally like in the shower trying to, So, but I thought I heard him say that he wanted Otis as a backup center. Did I hear that right?
Well, no, he said he did a good job. He doesn't want that. He's got him there, but that's not what they want. They want him. They want somebody they feel comfortable with to be behind, so he doesn't have to do that backup.
And I don't think it's Street. I don't know if I know you've seen it.
Street, but no, they're wanting somebody out of the portal, Ty. Yeah. They're really wanting somebody. They're wanting a guy who can, and maybe it's someone who can switch over to guard if he needed to be. And there's always a chance. I mean, what they could do, you could still, even if you don't sign a center portal, you could still start Otis at tackle. And if Limmer got hurt, Otis could go to center because you've got Chamley, you've got Ty Keese, you've got Manuel, and you've got Harris. You've got some options. Of course, one of them would probably be starting also, but of those 4, 3 wouldn't be if Braun and Otis are. So you've still got some options. So I don't know that, but I don't know what he said about wanting, but I know Sam has told me he doesn't want him to be the backup center. He wants him to be out there at tackle, and that came from Sam. And he wants him to. He feels like he's in there with the top 5, and this could change. I mean, we're talking about April, early April, so this could all change.
Yeah,
but I do feel good about. I feel good about. I've got a long-winded to answer your question, but I do feel good about their options on the offensive line. But yeah, I do think there'll be a drop-off, and I do think there's going to be an adjustment period. It's just we're used to last year they plugged in Luke Jones for Myron Cunningham. That was it. Yeah. That was it, and it's not that simple this year.
And who did a pretty good job last year?
Luke,
Luke at left tackle, but
yeah, he did a very good job. Look, I knew when he was in high school he could play. I saw him at Pulaski Academy, and I thought he was better than some of the guys that were ranked ahead of him. Arkansas was slow offering him, and I actually, I didn't understand that because I actually thought he was better than some of the kids that they had offered prior to him. And he was a good ball player. He was solid. I mean, he wasn't never going to be an all-SEC player, but he was a very solid offensive lineman. Yeah. And the thing about some of those kids, like at PA under Coach Kelly and stuff, some of those kids get a knock that, well, they're not tough. They're just a product of the system. They pass block, but they don't run. And that's really not true. And with Luke, he came to camp, and he showed them he was physical. I was at the camp when he did it and earned his scholarship. He showed them he was very physical.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, too, and this is something I didn't write down, but it just kind of popped into my head. Of all the newcomers at this camp so far, I've got maybe one or two people in my mind. Out of all the newcomers, who has impressed you the most? Who have you looked at and you thought, okay.
You talking about transfers or high school or both?
Transfer or high school.
Okay. I'm going to tell you what, I'm really impressed, and I'm not saying in order, but Jacoby Criswell has gotten better and better and better. He is just, and Sam made that point yesterday. I've seen him start. Jacoby's a good quarterback. I've said all along, if KJ gets hurt, they're not going to be the drop-off you saw last year. Jacoby can do things, a lot of the same things that KJ can do, and it won't be the drop-off that you would think. I like Andrew Armstrong. I like him. I like Isaac Taslaw, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I like him. He's a good ball player. I love Armstrong. Luke at tight end, Luke Hayes, Haas, another kid. Man, he's impressive. That's the offense. On defense, I like Greer, like you said. I mean, the kid's solid, man. I love a kid that I didn't know that much about was I like Carson Dean. I haven't seen as much as Sam because we got limited time. But I like Lorando Johnson. He's better than I thought he was. He's better than they thought he was. I will tell you that. He's better than they thought he was. Walcott was the start of that deal, and he's going to be a star at nickel. He may be one of the best nickels to ever play at Arkansas. I'm going to put that on Walcott right now.
Who was that again?
Walcott. Walcott will be one of the best nickels to play at Arkansas. He will make people forget Miles Slusher. I promise you.
I'll tell you I don't have that many names because, I don't want to just go over all the names. That Walcott has stood out. The deadgummit we just talked about him, the linebacker, the transfer out of Florida. Greer has stood out to me. Luke Haas, I went and watched. The tight ends practice all the way down the south end of the practice field,
right?
So we don't get to see them as much unless you venture down there. And I finally went down there last week. Haas does look, even though he's one of the shorter, lighter tight ends, man, he looks ready to go. I mean, he still has a little way to go in terms of where his body needs to be, right? But in terms of like in fastball, I saw him wide open. Don't know how it happened. He was wide open. I think it was maybe Criswell that hit him maybe about 15, 20 yards downfield. And apparently he'd done that in earlier in another day that maybe I missed.
Ball player, Ty.
He's a good ball player. Haas, I do like. I haven't got to watch the defenses often. I've really been watching the quarterbacks, but Criswell is absolutely early on. People were telling me when I would talk about him on my live on Tuss Talk, man, you're really down on Criswell because in the beginning he looked like he was still trying to.
Yeah, he wasn't throwing. He was throwing interceptions. He was thinking. I asked him about a week and a half ago, sometime or another. I asked Sam, I said, did the light go off for Criswell and Singleton? I'll throw Malachi in there. It just seemed like at that scrimmage they had, and there was only like 3 of us there, me and Tom and Trey. Everybody was watching the Illinois basketball game with Arkansas, but that scrimmage, I was there, and you saw Criswell and Singleton both. They were being quarterbacks, Ty, and not thinking and not being kind of mechanical, like robots, like you were feeding them the information. You could see it. And then I asked Sam the next week, I said, is the light finally going off? And he said, yeah. And you could see it. And Criswell, he wasn't looking good early on. He really wasn't. He was throwing interceptions. And he did have one that he hit. I forget the receiver. It might have been Isaac. That he hit at the scrimmage and hit him in the hands, and the ball bounced up like a Trey Knox deal with KJ last year. It went right in the hands of a defensive back. And so that was the one interception, but that wasn't on him. But he had thrown some prior to that scrimmage that, just bad read. But no, he's looking. I'll tell you a kid, though, that I will throw a name out there that nobody's mentioning, and I asked Nudie about him the other day, is Jalen Braxton. I really like him. Keep an eye on him. But, I love Walcott. I'm going to tell you what, the media will love Walcott when he comes into that room. That kid is the best interview you've ever been with. I mean, the media, the guys that are beat writers, going to love Walcott when he comes in that media room because he is the best. Now, Snacks, just the opposite. You can't get anything out of him. Not rude, nice kid, but he just doesn't talk. But Walcott talks enough for both of them, man.
Also, and I know he's not a newcomer, he's technically a redshirt freshman. Isaiah Centennia is the other guy. I've kept a pretty good eye on the receivers. I think I would argue he's been the best looking receiver of the bunch. I think you could probably toss a couple other guys in that conversation, and I'm not going to die on any hill, but he's looked really good. And I was actually watching him yesterday. I think who was guarding him? I leaned over to you and I said,
it was Snacks. Snacks. Yeah, Snacks right. Had to grab him because Centennia beat him off the line of scrimmage, and he would have been wide open.
And that was pretty spectacular to see. And I know a lot of other media people were kind of on the other end. I just happened to cheat my way down there a little bit, and I saw that happen almost kind of off to my left, and I was kind of blown away by it because Snacks has been fantastic.
So I was standing right there, and I'm going to tell you, he reminds me of what happened with Drew Morgan when Keon Hatcher went down back in 2015.
Yeah.
When Keon Hatcher went down, Drew Morgan stepped in and ran with the opportunity, man. And that's the thing. When you're in that situation, you've got to be ready when your opportunity comes, because you may not get another one.
Yeah.
But when you get, and what happened with Keon Hatcher and maybe another receiver, that was 2015, another receiver got hurt, but Keon was out. They put Drew Morgan in there, and he never came out. I mean, he played with Keon. Drew Morgan took the opportunity. And I asked Sam yesterday, I said, when he saw Jaden Wilson and Tyrone Broden go out with injuries, did Isaiah kind of kick it into another gear? Did he try and take the opportunity to run with it? And Sam said, that ran through his mind. So, that's just the Jaheim Singletary, though, but he's not here yet.
Yeah, he's not on campus. I wanted to throw that up there for the next question.
Yeah.
He's not on campus. I was on Mark Rogers' show yesterday, and some Georgia fans were asking me about him, and I said, well, he's not on campus yet. Unless I'm missing something, he's not been on campus. So
he came in for an official visit and then left, but no, he'll be here in late May, early June, same as Alex Sanford, same as Samar Easter. There's a whole list of and anybody else that they had out of the portal going forward will be here the same time, unless it's a guy that has to go to summer school to graduate or something. But normally the transfer guys, just like the high school kids that are not here right now, the Alex Sanfords, the Samar Easters, the running back, those kids will be here late May, early June. They'll be here for then.
We've not even talked about, because he's not been here, he's not here, but we haven't even talked about Samar Easter. The tight end room for the future, assuming all these guys, you know how this works with the portal and NIL, if these guys all stick around, oh my gosh, that tight end.
I love Tyrus Washington, Ty. Yeah. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he is. He showed it in the bowl game when they finally threw to him, gave him a chance to play. Nathan Bax, I think, is a role player. good for the room, in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I think he's got a chance to really be a good ball player. Easter's got to get more physical, put on more weight. Both those kids have got to get bigger. But
I think I
back
see
will
one
buy
of
him some time.
Yeah, I think I could see one of them just moving out to, still being tight end, but lining them up at wide receiver somewhere. Philip White, fam, wants to know, is Jacoby, talking about Criswell, is he faster than KJ, like on foot?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
not
sure
really
about
seen
that.
Criswell run a lot. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know. I think all three of those kids are pretty similar in the sense I'm talking about Malachi, Jacoby, and KJ. I mean, they can all pull it down and run. I don't know who's the fastest.
Maybe different
none
styles.
of them as fast as Hornsby was, but they're all three much better quarterbacks than Hornsby was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speed is one thing, but being a quarterback is another one. And all
it is.
That's not a shot at Malik. It's just he wasn't as good a quarterback. He was faster though, but you've got to do more than run fast because eventually they figure that out. All three are fast enough, though. All three of them, and I don't know which of the three would win a race.
And they're all different kind of runners. Like the freshman is Singleton. He's a he looks like a running back. He looks like a little bit. I don't know. I think he is
like a Rocket Sanders back there, man. That kid's. I wouldn't want to get run over by him. Well, I wouldn't want to get run over by any of them. But I mean, Malachi is a load, man. I mean, he comes at you like KJ. Criswell's not as big as those kids. He's big, but he's not as big as them. Criswell, I know, is listed like 220 or so, but he's actually like 205, and that's on purpose. He was 220 down at Morrilton, and when he went to North Carolina, and Jacoby has actually lost weight with intent to lose weight because he felt like he needed that, but he's more like a 205 than a 220 like he's listed.
I've got another question for you here in a minute. We're going to talk about their scrimmage here briefly, but Austin wants to know overall, how does KJ look now compared to where he was this time last year? That's actually a really good question.
Yeah, it is. Well, we didn't see the scrimmage Saturday.
Nope.
So we don't. I mean, I saw him at the scrimmage. Well, when I was at that scrimmage the day they played Illinois, I was there for 9 periods, or I believe it was, or maybe it was 7, but whatever. They only scrimmaged 2 of those periods, Ty. So it wasn't like I saw 9 periods of scrimmage. I saw 2 periods. And part of it was when KJ wasn't even being, they were alternating the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I really didn't see much of that. I think he looks similar. I think he's got a little bit of the thinking going home with a new offense. I don't know that he looks as sharp as he did last year at this time. And here's why I say that. And this is just me talking. I think he's doing a little thinking too, because you got to understand, Dan Eno's got a new approach to this. KJ's going to be fine. He is fine. But I mean, he's going to be fine. But I think he even went through a little bit of the thinking. I think he's looked better lately. I think early on they all were doing a little bit of thinking. I mean, we know Jacoby was. We talked about that. And then Malachi, obviously, the freshman's going. He would have even if Prowse was here. But KJ, I think, they're putting him under center some. They're asking him to do different things. I think at times he thinks, and it's affecting some of his throws. He's had some throws that were really not KJ-like, but then he's had some really good ones. But he's going to be fine. But I would ahead of where he was.
It's hard to say, and someone asked me about his throwing motion, and I was like, look, I mean, I'm not Dan Eno, so I'm not a quarterback guru, and I don't pretend to be, but he looks the same to me, maybe. And like you said, there's definitely, I think they're all trying to get used to, and that includes Cade Fortin. Say what you want about Cade,
they're all learning that new system. It's just different. It would have been for Malachi either way because he was a true freshman, wasn't here under Kendall. But those other 3, you talk about Fortnite and KJ and Jacoby. They're doing a lot of thinking,
Yeah, a lot of thinking, a lot of trying to process, and also think about the receivers he's working with this year. It's a whole new roster. I mean, really at wide receiver, along with a couple of guys that were here last year. Centennia, who was here, but didn't really play.
Well, really, Jaden Wilson and Bryce Stevens are the returning guys, and they weren't big factors. Bryce more so than Jaden, but both of them stepped up in the bowl game. But during the season, Bryce's best game was the game at Mississippi State when KJ was hurt and Malik found him for that long touchdown. That's when he had his best game. But I mean, none of these guys. But it was the same way last year. You had the receivers, and look who stepped up. It was Hazelwood and Landers. It wasn't, Keytron was still the third. I think Keytron, if he'd stayed, would have been the number one go-to guy. And there was a question yesterday about a 700 to 1,000-yard receiver on the team, a go-to guy. Look, I don't know that they have to have that. I think they've got, between those three transfers, between Isaiah, Bryce Stevens, Jaden Wilson, Sam Bakke, I don't know, even Dozier, who's not here yet, but so I haven't seen him.
We forget about him too, yeah.
I mean, there's about 8 of those kids I think are not here.
Yeah.
And so we can't really talk about the ones that are not here. Singletary right now is the only portal guy that's not here. And they did offer a nickelback from Boston College yesterday. I know we're not talking recruiting, but they did offer DeBerry yesterday a nickelback from Boston College who would come in and compete with Walcott at the nickel position. But anyway, but he would there again. He would be here in the summer. But I just Jalen Braxton is a kid to watch. Ty, that is a kid in the future to watch out there. I think he is going to be a really good corner if he stays around. Who knows with NIL and the portal and stuff. You can't really count him. But if he doesn't get discouraged and leave, Jalen Braxton is going to be a very good corner for this team.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna transition to this next question, but Haas just asked a dynamite question here because this was another thing I wanted to mention. I had kind of shelved it, but then John asked a really good question here. Has KJ developed any connections with receivers that looks like it'll be a combination he could trust? Sam Pittman talked about that very thing yesterday.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the two that I think he has. It looked like Jaden Wilson was going to be one of those guys before Jaden got in that car accident, but I'll tell you the two that it looks like he has is Armstrong and Isaac to Slaw. Those are the two that I feel like. Now, we can talk about Bryce Stevens, and that's who Sam always talks about, but it looks like to me that KJ really feels comfortable throwing to Armstrong and Isaac, and so do the other. But I think, like I said, I don't know that he's going to have a 700 to 1,000-yard receiver. I don't know.
I don't think so either.
I think they're going to be okay there. I mean, I think last year so much was put on Jaden and so much was put on Landers, and you may not have a guy that approaches the figures those two kids did, and it may be more balanced. But I could see you might have 7 receivers, 6 or 7 receivers, and I think Isaiah will be one of them. He should be. If he's not, he should be.
He's catching. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball.
They need to forget that size on him. They need to forget that size deal and play that kid. I could see 6, 7, 8 receivers between 15 and 40 catches. Have a balanced deal where you don't necessarily have one go-to guy. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that he's developed a go-to guy, but I do know it seems like when he looks for somebody, in the few times we've seen him in live action, Armstrong and Isaac have been 2 kids they've looked for. Jaden Wilson was a kid that he was going to quite a bit early on. Now, Jaden was in a car accident and is not going to be out there. But it's good to see Jaden stepping up because he's been there for a while, and he and Bryce need to step up. And Bryce started it last year. He really did. He started stepping up.
And it is early too. I mean, but it's a good question because Sam just talked about it, and he talked about being a trustworthy receiver, and that's how this is when you start to work on those things. This time of year is when you start to work on syncing up with your players around you, getting on the same page, getting the timing down with your receivers. And those names you mentioned, I swear, and I know I keep bringing up Centennia, I swear I think he's caught 15 balls in the last 2 times I've watched him practice. I mean, he's, I've not seen him drop anything. And you already mentioned a couple others. Samuel Bakke is a guy who I've seen drop actually quite a few balls, but they have targeted him a little bit. I think he's a name to keep an eye on. I know there was some concern about him. Someone had said in my Discord he wiped his Instagram and all this, and I don't look too far into that. We always have to remind people, don't look too far into that. Sometimes kids just do that. They wipe their Instagram or Twitter for whatever reason. Yeah. But I think they have, like you said, several guys that could step up, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be 700, 800 yards type of, a season. It could just mean they're going to play large roles.
Bakke's been running a lot of first teams. I don't know why he would be upset.
And when they said that, I thought that was weird when that was brought up.
Actually, when they run the first 3 out there, especially since Wilson went out, usually now when they send the first 3 out there, a lot of times it's been Mabake, it's been Stevens, and it's been Isaac Slaw. That's been the first 3 a lot of times. I mean, and then the next one would be Isaiah Armstrong, and Broden was on that second till he got hurt.
Yeah.
I think now, I'm not sure who the other one would be now. I know Landon's been running some third team, Landon Rogers, but whatever.
Yeah, Landon's actually looked pretty decent.
Landon's a good ball player. I don't know what.
Yeah.
They moved him around. He played quarterback, tight end, wide receiver. Yeah. They moved him around. It seemed like I don't think he even played in the bowl game when everybody else did. And Aaron Outley left, James Joyner left, and the kid stuck it out. And I don't know. But no, he makes plays, man. I mean, he's a big kid. What, he's 6'5" or so? I mean, 6'4". I don't know what he's listed at here. I can look and see, but he's
big-bodied. I've seen him jump up for the ball and kind of sacrifice his body. And
6'4", 205. I mean, he's athletic. Yeah. I thought he was honestly. I thought he was a better quarterback than Hornsby last year. I thought they should have left him there if that's what's going to be their option.
Oh man, could you imagine saying that this time a year ago? We would have been there would have been a witch hunt out for Otis, Kirk, and Ty Hudson. But I kind of thought something similar that I just was never really blown away. And then Sam Pittman says, "Well, he's night and day different as a passer, maybe in practice." And I think he probably was. I don't think Sam was being dishonest. I think in practice, there's just these guys who show up in practice, but they don't show it on game day, or the opposite. They pull a Matt Jones where they don't really care much about practice.
Yeah, you saw him in practice. You think that kid stinks, man. He should not be on the field. He goes out there on the field and looks like the best quarterback since other than Cam Newton, maybe ever.
I had never heard the term gamer until Matt Jones came around. And I was in high school when all that was going on.
And
I remember that.
Man, believe me, because he sucked in practice. He didn't care. He'd show up and he'd get out there, and he and Cedric Cobbs would show up with their music blasting, the car rocking, man. And you could hear the music a mile away. But man, when they came game day, I was down in Austin when those two, Jones and Cobbs, absolutely killed the Longhorns, man. I mean, they ran it right down their throats down there in Austin, Texas.
I don't think there'll ever be another Matt Jones at least not at Arkansas. I don't know that they'll ever have another Matt Jones.
What would have been awesome if they? I'm gonna make a joke here, but what would have been awesome is to have Matt Jones at quarterback, but Peyton Hillis at fullback, and Felix Jones and Darren McFadden at running back and run the wishbone, and Marcus Monk at receiver. I'm telling you, man. I mean, you talking about Matt Jones at quarterback, Peyton Hillis at fullback, and McFadden and Jones. If they could have all got there at the same time and used had the whatever to go put the wishbone and run it with those guys that Monk at receiver. Yeah. I mean, you could have
triple option, run the old triple op.
I mean, who could have stopped that? I mean, you had and then you get running back, put Michael Smith in there. I mean, and I'm being silly because they weren't even there at the same time, but I'm just saying that would have been one heck of I've always thought, man, that would have been one heck of a backfield just to see. It's certain situations where you go to the wishbone with those four kids. I'm goofy. I think of stuff like that, but it would have been funny, man, to just see that because it would have put some fear in other teams. I promise.
Oh my gosh! Well,
you
and that's
watch you go run, and then watch them try to stop that because they had a hard time.
And that's the difference between Arkansas's and I hate to say it, but the Georgias and the Alabamas. We're sitting here like, could you imagine having Cedric Cobbs, Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Matt Jones, Treylon Burks, Monk at wide receiver? If only the timing had set up. For teams like Alabama and Georgia, that's what they do year in and year out. They get those caliber players at the right time because they can do it at will. They can, and that's why I like the portal so much, is that might help you close the gap to a degree. Hey, let me ask you this final question and we'll cut you loose. Sam said something really interesting that caught my attention, and I'm sure it did yours as well. He said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't think this isn't verbatim, but he says something along the lines, I'm not going to worry about the things you worry about when you scrimmage. Obviously, I think he's talking about going full speed and tackling to the ground. In other words, he's not as concerned about injuries this time of year. Is that what you believe he was saying? And do you think is that the right approach, you think, for him to take, is to just let these guys go full speed and tackle to the ground?
I think you've got to be smart with that, though, because the last thing you want to do, I was surprised Broden wasn't worse than what he was. I was there when they helped him off the field. He could not put any weight on that knee.
You told me about that.
I didn't know then if it was a knee or an ankle. I didn't think he'd be back this spring, and I don't know that he will be. I know he was out there yesterday running routes, but you can see him limping and stuff. Yeah, I don't know that he will be in the spring game time. But I mean, even doing what he did yesterday surprised me because I thought because it looked bad. I mean, it looked bad, man. Yeah. But I think you've got to be smart with that, but I do think you've got to be more physical because last year they couldn't wrap up on people. And I think part of it is because they never tackled to the ground in practice. I mean, I think you've got to be smart with that. But, yeah, you've got to be more physical than they were last year. I mean, I didn't know if it's a strength coach because they weren't strong. They could never get anybody. They would get people, even Drew Sanders, those guys, they would wrap up or they would start to tackle, and then the guy would power forward 2 more yards, even with two Razorbacks on them, all of them. No, not singling out anybody, all of them. And it would just seem like either they're lacking strength or they're just not fundamentals on tackling drills. But, yeah, I think you've got to be more physical than they were. And if you're not in practice, when you got to be? You can't just turn it on the game. I'm one of those that doesn't believe that you can go to the game and just switch the button and it's like the light in your house. You turn it on and off with the button or with the switch. I don't think it works that way. So, yeah, right. I think they've got to be, but you've got to be smart with that. You've got to be smart because the last thing you want to do is go into not just Western Carolina, but that LSU stretch, the A&M, those games, BYU, without your best players. You're going to lose some along the way, but you don't want to get people hurt in practice and then not have them for the season. That defeats the whole purpose. So you got to be smart. I guess what I'm saying is, Sam, be more physical, tackle to the ground. If you get somebody hurt, then I'm going to blame your butt. It's a catch-22, man. It really is.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it is. It's easy to sit there and say, yeah, but I do think they need more physical stuff, and it starts in practice. Like I said, I'm not one of those that believes you can just turn it on at the game and all of a sudden you're real physical. I think they've got to be. But as I said, he's just got to be more. He's got to be smart with it, man. Maybe not. I don't think Rocket Sanders needs to be tackled to the ground. Obviously, quarterbacks are not going to be hit. They've never been hit in practice. No. It's been a long time. Broyles was probably the last, maybe Otis. I don't remember. I wasn't up here then, but I don't remember. But it's been a long time since quarterbacks were allowed to be hit in practice. It's just been a long.
And that is definitely the right.
Oh, definitely the right. The last thing you want. I remember when Broyles was here one time, and right before the season, they lost their starting quarterback in a scrimmage out there. I believe it was Broyles. Maybe it was Holtz. But anyway, they lost their starting quarterback, and it's like, God, man, that's the last thing you want. No, that's definitely the right thing. Quarterback doesn't need to get hit. You darn sure don't want to lose KJ in practice. But I don't know that Rocket Sanders needs to be hit. But I do think the thing about it is you can take 2 or 3 players out of it. Since your quarterback's Jacoby, KJ, Malachi's not going to be hit. You can take those guys out of it, Ty, but you can still tackle to the ground. You just don't tackle those guys. You tackle the others. I I don't think you want to lose an AJ Green or a Rashad Dubinion, but I do think you're still other people you can tackle to the ground.
Yeah,
I really like AJ. I know you like Rashad better than a lot of people too, but I do know AJ had the better scrimmage Saturday. But I love AJ Green and I get the knock on him about, and I don't think he's kickoff returner. Let me say that. I don't like how he returns kickoffs, but I do think he's a very good running back. And I think Rashad is too. How many times you go into a bowl game and lose your starting running back and have two kids basically get 100 yards? I mean, right. AJ had 99 yards, Rashad was over 100, but basically that's unusual, man.
Shout out to Mark Rogers, voice of college football. I was on his show yesterday. $20 super chat. You're awesome, Mark. I appreciate that. Support Ty. He's the man. Don't tell your Iowa audience that, Mark. They I don't think they were digging me too much yesterday. We were kind of going back and forth with his live chat, and it was maybe the most entertaining thing I've ever done. It was actually a lot of fun. We brought on a Georgia YouTuber contributor also and brought him in on the conversation. It was fascinating. If you haven't watched that video yet, guys, go watch it. The whole thing is really good. Mark, of course, does a wonderful job, and we need to support these content creators and people that do this stuff. And of course, Otis Kirk from Hogville, go show him support as well. Go read his articles. Go to Hogville, and that's where you can find him. Otis, I think that's really all I have today, man. I really do appreciate you with your busy schedule. I appreciate you taking a little time out of your day and coming on.
You're fine, man. I've got one more show to do later today, and then and I'm working on a baseball advance right now. But yeah, no, it's awesome, man. I think it's my fourth or fifth story today. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, it's always great to be on here, man. Ask me anytime you want. I'll be on here, and I work a little bit more recruiting. We can have a recruiting segment. I just haven't been doing much recruiting work lately, as people can tell, but I will. And I did have a story today. They offered the kid out of Boston College, the nickelback, and then KJ Jackson was here at practice. I actually saw him. I saw him at practice yesterday. KJ was standing over, but I guess he's talking about a tornado or something.
Yeah, I guess I think we have another warning. I guess wind.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, man, those things are wreaking. I mean, it's wiping people out. I talked to Grayson Wilson. I had him on the show, my segment on TV Sunday, Ty, and his house was okay, but he didn't have any power when I contacted him Saturday. Their power was out. He'd been to the scrimmage up here, but got home and their power was out, but his house wasn't bothered.
Who was this?
Grayson Wilson, the quarterback of Central Arkansas Christian.
Yeah,
I had him on my TV segment Sunday, but Quincy Rhodes was out there helping with the cleanup down there.
I saw that. I was going to ask you about his arm.
Nice article on that. Yeah, Courtney Mims did, and
saw that. She did a great job. Shout out to Courtney Mims.
Yeah, Grayson's internet got back those Saturday night later, and he texted me and said I can do the show tomorrow because he was trying to figure out where he could do it from if he didn't get his power back on there at the house. I mean, those storms have been bad, and I hate that for Wynn. You've got Terry Wells from there, and a lot of good people win. So
you do.
Hope everybody's safe. It sucks to lose your house like that. I lost mine in a house fire, and you sit there and watch everything you've worked for all your life, and it's not the furniture or the stuff. People, you got the insurance. Yeah, you got the insurance, but your pictures, your photos, your keepsake stuff. Insurance doesn't give you anything for that. And they couldn't replace it. Even money doesn't replace your pictures of your dead parents and stuff like that. Yeah. And that's what I got into when my house burned. And it just sucks, man. I lost my bulldog, and I feel for people outside. Mine wasn't a tornado, but it was a house fire. And it's all. I mean, it's just when you lose everything you've worked for and stuff that only means something to you doesn't mean anything to the next person. That's what really hurts and stuff like that, Ty, is to lose that stuff, because the insurance will cover the furniture and stuff I don't care anything about anyway. But that's,
we just got new shingles put on, and they were talking about the and we had solar panels installed as well. And they were talking about these high winds and a possible tornado. And I told my wife, I said, of course, as soon as we get all this stuff replaced, it's going to get ripped off our damn house. Wonderful. But no, you guys, those of you who, if you're in the affected areas, please be safe, be careful. You know, this time of year, and guess what? This ain't going to be the last of it.
Nope.
Whatever it may or may not be, you know, we're going to have these warnings, and there's several people I posted in our Discord for you guys to follow. Some really good people to follow on Twitter to kind of keep you up to date when it comes to these storms. Take them serious, even if they die down kind of later, like the one up here did last night. Just keep an eye out on it and check in on your loved ones and your friends. Make sure everyone's doing okay, and find shelter if you have to. He's Otis Kirk. I'm Ty Hudson. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, Patreon supporters, of course, to the sponsors, Odd Soul, Direct Service Overhead, and the Apex Tattoo Studio. Until next time, I'll see you guys around. Whoop-ick.
Thanks, Ty. See you tomorrow, man.
Absolutely.